Okay. What's going on, family? What's going on? Peace and shalom. It's your brother DivineProspect, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. Be back in the building. Okay. What's going on, family? What's going on? Cell phone. All right, so we back. Spend some time. I know. I understand. I know the haters looking at this saying, man, he's back. I ain't never left. When the camera's off, there's stuff always going on. So don't think for a second, because you don't see me on this camera, that I ain't putting in work behind the scenes. 24/7, 365 ministry is ongoing. Okay. And those who have been in contact and communication with me over the past 2 weeks or so can attest to that. All right. But I'm going to give it a second for y'all to pile on in, and then we're going to get started. I got a short presentation I want to show y'all on tonight. And this is just a preview of my comeback when it comes to these presentations. All right. And these lectures, and the classes are starting very soon. I'm working hard on those classes. Okay. So we got a lot installed for later on this fall, going into the winter, all the way into spring break, quote unquote, next year, when Passover begins. Okay. Or the first of Aviv begins next year. But we're going to try to close out this year strong and get things popping. Now, also, we still have an ongoing giveaway on the Patreon. I'll go ahead and show that material later on in this presentation. So I want to say thank you and shout out to everybody who just recently signed up for the Patreon. You are all eligible, but in order for you to win the giveaway, go to www.patreon.com/DivineProspect, and you have to share the Patreon link on all social medias, or sending it to email to somebody or message somebody, because it lets us know when patrons are sharing the link. So you share the link everywhere, email, text, whatever, get the word out on how great our Patreon is, and the immediate feedback that people get, or the immediate, I would say, yield on their return, or return on investment that people get when you sign up for the Patreon. There's so many resources, over 700 posts on there. And in doing so, when you're finished, you type in done in the comment section on the giveaway post, and everybody and anybody, and only the people that are there, will be eligible for being added to this giveaway, right? I'm gonna pick the names at random. Tomorrow's your last day, which is the Shabbat. After the Shabbat is over, I'm going to pick 2 winners of 2 recipients for 2 books that I'm giving away. All right. So I've been having this running since last weekend, and this Shabbat, after the Sabbath is over, after the sun sets, then I'm going to pick the winners. All right. So far, we only have 3 people commented on the giveaway. So only 3 people right now eligible for these books that I'm about to give away. I'm going to talk about them in a second and show you how invaluable these books are, and how it's very rare to get a hold of these books. Okay. But I'm giving 2 of them away for free because I got extras. Okay. So please support the ministry. And this is probably the only patron that actually gives back, right? Physically as well as digitally. Right. And you'll see once we go through this presentation that if you don't have this material in your catalog of books or your personal library, you're not getting the most out of this text. When I say text, I'm talking about the scriptures. Okay. All right. So on the screen, you see there this presentation. You'll see how valuable these materials are, why this giveaway is so important. So as we're talking, please be sure to make sure you put the word out in regards to the Patreon. All right. All right. So let me go ahead and transition real quick. All right. I'm going to give it another couple of minutes for y'all to come on in. Make sure you share this link. Share this link. If you're brand new, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you share this video everywhere on all social media networks. I'm keeping an eye on the chat to make sure there's no audio and video issues. I just got a brand new router that I spent $700 on. $700. I was wired previously because I didn't like the wireless connection I had with my previous router. So I invested in a brand new router that cost me some coin. And we're on the 6 gigahertz spectrum. And I just want to make sure that there's no audio visual issues. So make sure you hit 1 if the audio and video is good. Hit 1 if the audio and video is good. If there's issues with the audio and video, hit 2. Hit 1 if everything is kosher. Hit 2 if it's unclean. Hit 1 if it's kosher. Hit 2 if it's unclean. Let me know so we can get started. I'm waiting on y'all. Waiting on your participation. And we're about to get it in. Okay? Let me know if everything is kosher. All right. Audio and video is on point. Okay. It looks like it also right here on my phone. So I think we may be good to go. Also, y'all interested in getting one of these shirts? We still got the Deaf to Dogma shirts on deck. So if you want a Deaf to Dogma shirt, just email us, kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. We're going to be doing a giveaway for some t-shirts. We're going to be giving away 5 t-shirts. And that's going to worth $150. 5 t-shirts worth $150. That's our next giveaway. We're going to do that giveaway on this channel and the Patreon. So if you have Patreon, you have 2 chances to win 5 t-shirts on this channel. Tune into this channel. Make sure you keep your eye on the community tab of this channel, because even if you don't see a video on here, I always post content on there as well. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled for what's going on in the community tab. And our next giveaway after these books giveaway is these t-shirts. All right, we're going to give 5 t-shirts away so you can win. One recipient is going to win 5 of our KHM t-shirts. All right, so make sure you keep your eyes peeled, get the word out, get more people to sign up, to subscribe, to like, all right, to sign up for the Patreon, to be a part of what we got going on here. We have a lot going on in the ministry, and we're going to get things going again, all right? So recently, as y'all know, about 2 weeks ago, I had oral surgery, had to get my wisdom tooth removed. It was in a very precarious position. It was pushing against my rear molar, dislodging it, and at the same time trying to create a cavity because it was pushing it so hard, and I had to go get some major oral surgery to get it removed. Currently, I'm in the healing process. I can talk very fluidly now. There's still a hole or a gap in the back of my mouth, but it's closing up the way it's supposed to appropriately. So I'm grateful for that. But right after that, my whole household got sick last week. So we was sick for about a week and a half, all last week from the weekend all the way to the weekend. And then coming into this week, we were really sick, man. It took a long period of time of remedies, and kids had to stay home from school and everything to try and get the entire household well. And it's very rare that we get sick like that, especially all of us, right? And all of us got sick, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. So we did what we could, and it worked. I was sick too, and I'm better now. I'm about 90% recovered. But so you're talking about 2 different things: oral surgery and some kind of viral sickness. That's all contributing to keeping me off the camera and doing this part of ministry. Notice I said this part of ministry because I'm always doing ministry 24/7, 365, always. So I thank the Most High for giving me the opportunity to come back on the screen to see all of y'all. I can't see your physical faces, but I do see y'all in the chat. So I thank y'all for your participation. This is what I look forward to every Friday evening, is spending time with y'all and bringing the Most High in here, invoking his presence amongst us. So great things can happen every time we spend time together on this channel when we're live. All praise to the Most High. All right. So I just want to make sure I put that out there so that, it's a PSA. Y'all know what's going on. I'm back. Oh, praise to the Most High. I'm going to pray that I stay healed so I can continue to give y'all hit after hit after hit after hit. And I've been working on a music track. Don't tell nobody. Working on a music track. You're about to see some hot fire. But anyway, see, when I'm not feeling well, and I can't say I have time on my hands because I work 2 jobs, I got a family, and I still do ministry. But at least when I'm off this camera and I have some time to reflect and some research and to put some creative juices together and brainstorm think tank stuff, when I mix that potion, ain't no telling what's gonna come up out of there, man. Ain't no telling what's gonna come up. No telling where inspiration is gonna come from and what's about to go down. So I just thank the Most High, because even in those moments when He has to keep you still when you're sick, He never turns off that creative process in the brain, man. And you always got to use it for good. You got to stay focused, be productive, because if not, that idle mind is the playground of who. That's what they say. You know what I mean? So stay sharp, stay vigilant, and stay sober-minded. All right. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I want to say that, matter of fact, let me just show it to y'all real quick on the screen. If y'all don't know, you're about to know. And those of you who are missing out don't know what to tell you. Don't know what to tell you. All right. So take a look at the screen. Y'all know what time it is. It's the month of Ethanim. We had a Yom Teruah, or a Feast of Trumpet. We passed Yom Kippur, which is Day of Atonement. And now coming on up, we have, starting Sunday evening, Sukkot. That's right. Sukkot starts Sunday evening. How do we know? Well, we got the KHM Pre-Exilic Israelite calendar for 2022. And if you don't have this calendar, then I can understand why you didn't know what I was about to say. But those of you who have the calendar, you already know what I was about to say, where I was going at with it. And if you don't know, then you need to get you the calendar. How do you get the calendar? Email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. Currently, we got our PM team working on next year's calendar, so it could be ready January 1st, 2023. January 1st, 2023, according to the Gregorian calendar. But this calendar is great because not only can you use it as a Gregorian calendar for your day-to-day civil duties and activities and calendrical events, but you can also use it to determine the feast days, because that ancient calendar is overlaid on top of the Gregorian calendar. All right. We also got beautiful images that you can see here. We have everything labeled to you to see what a Hebraic day breaks down into. We also have on the left side Moedim details and the legend that lets you know the images that you're looking at, what that represents and what that is. And we always got scripture. All right. So again, if y'all want this calendar, which is still good into February of next year, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com and get your copy. But for those of you who are following this calendrical system, right, this Sunday evening, in the evening time, that's going into Monday, is Sukkot. It's day 1 of Sukkot. All right. So that means on Sunday, I will be giving a mini lesson on Sukkot just to get things started, get things kicked off. If you're out here in Atlanta, reach out to us. Email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. We may do our conclusion of Sukkot, which will be next weekend. We'll do our Sukkot conclusion. We're going to pick a spot out here, probably at Stone Mountain or some other location. And we're going to end off our Sukkot with as many families that are local to Atlanta as possible, and close on out that way, if y'all willing, if everything goes well. All right. So let us know if you're in the Atlanta area. Email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com and let us know that you want to do Sukkot with us. And if we have enough people that want to do Sukkot with us, then we're going to go reserve a spot and get it done. All right. So I just want to put that out there so that everybody knows what's going on and you're aware of what's going down. All right. So just give me a second. Let's transition to our next segment. And then we're going to get popping. So before we do that, let me see who's in the building. Give a couple of shout outs. Shout out to 876 Benjamin Israel, Shalom. Lataris Harris, Shalom. Solomon Ben David, Shalom. Remnant Caller of Royal Priesthood, Shalom. J. Rod, Shalom. Bergen Parish, Shalom. Apothecary Custom, Shalom. Let's see. Aunt Antoinette Clark, shalom. King David, the Lucid Fire, shalom. Psalm 51, shalom. Shabbat, shalom. Don Williams, shalom. Raphael, shalom. Robbie Haywood, shalom. Naomi Z, shalom. Sis Patricia Brady, shalom. Mother Brady, shalom. Sister Lynette in the building. Ice You Coach, shalom. Dre in the building, shalom. Remarkable Life Ministries, shalom. W Mac in the building, shalom. Jimmy Johnson, shalom. Danny Yah Shamgar, shalom, shalom. How Kodesh Management in the building, shalom. Warfare, Rebirth of a Nation, shalom. What's going on? What's going on? Let's see. Who else we got up in here? Let me see. Pro Bono Smoke, shalom. Jay, shalom. Black Ave, shalom. What's going on? Luke 12:51 Truth, shalom. Let's see. Ariel, shalom. Ben Yehuda, shalom. Ron Shevat Ben Levi, shalom. Let's see. Dita Star loves Yah, shalom. Sister V loves, shalom. Jean, shalom. Lewi Tribe, shalom. Manika Williams, shalom. Thea P, shalom. Let's see. The Bible and Me, shalom. Unknown L, shalom. What's going on? Okay, so we're Mother Beulah, shalom. I see you. What's going on? So we're not taking any questions right now, but I'll address this for you. Okay, I wanted to make sure that I see that and let you know I saw it, sis. So we do that. So Ron Shivat Ben Lewi, some groups did do Sukkot, right? But KHM, we have not done Sukkot yet. Sukkot starts for us this Sunday evening. And everybody who has a calendar or has followed us since 2016 when we came out public with the calendar, which is about 6 years now, we've been doing this calendar. KHM have been doing this calendar, right? For 6 years straight, we got 3 calendars, which is halfway through that 6-year period. And in those calendars, we document for you when those feast days are. We have several videos on this channel and even a playlist that goes over the feast days. So just take a look for that and you'll see how we determine and calculate our feast days. So yes, other groups have done it, but we have not officially done it. Okay. All right. So I just want to make sure I address that for you. Okay. Shout out to Stanley Fields in the building. What's going on, Elder? Shalom. Sister Navia Yasha Al. What's going on, sis? Shalom. All right. So let me address this for the sister real quick. Sister Lynette, that's an interesting question. I do get it trimmed from time to time, so it's not as long as it can be, but I do get it trimmed from time to time. And before brothers say, "Oh, you breaking the commandments," we address that several times on this channel, and we explain to you, unless you understand Canaanite culture and what they were doing, that you don't know what the Most High was telling the Israelites not to do. You got to know what they were doing to know what not to do, and you got to go back to the Epic of Baal or the Baal cycle and the mourning of El over the death of Baal to understand that ritual that they were practicing. And then once you understand what it is, then you know what the Most High told the Israelites not to do. So then you know that if you trim your beard and keep it neat, is not breaking the commandments. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get into the question real quick. So Thea P, I'm going to address this for you real briefly, and then we're going to move on with the show. You said, Shalom, I have a few questions that I'm having a hard time understanding. Can you reheat food on the Shabbat? Well, here's the thing. We know that in biblical times, and this is why I try to get y'all into culture. Remember I went over these books with y'all before, culture? This one in particular, let me see if I can get it to zoom in. This one in particular, it's called The Illustrated Guide. Oh, this thing is crazy. The Illustrated Guide to Bible Customs and Curiosities by George W. Knight. More than 750 entries on what they did, or why, on why they did what they did. All right. This will touch on a lot of that for you as far as like heating food and stuff like that. And then all of these books that I have over here, I'm going to show you some resources. So you'll know I'm not making this up. You ain't got to take my word for anything. You go over. I keep all this stuff on my desk. I got about 35 books on my desk right here that I just look at frequently. You got these books on manners and customs, manners and customs. It goes over for you all those things that they did back in the day. This is another goodie right here. The Urim and Thummim, a means of revelation of ancient Israel. That's a throwback. And then we also got one of the staple books that we mentioned on this channel called the Cultural Background Study Bible, bringing to life the ancient world of scripture, right? And why am I showing you this? Because if you understand culture back then, you understand the domain of variables in which they were working with. And then what happens is you understand our domain of variables that exist today, then you can do a one-to-one mapping. So Divine, what are you talking about? Speak plain. So back then in those days, there was a whole process that you had to go through in order for you to make food, to heat up food. There's an entire process. It had to be done by hand. It's manual. They did not have electronics like we have today. They didn't have appliances like we have today. So today it is effortlessly to reheat food. Back then, you could reheat food, but it was a whole process. It wasn't as long as doing it from scratch because they had other preservation methods of smoking foods, putting foods in jars and putting it in what we call depositories, or what we call today a basement, a cellar, right? Or a granary, or whatever the case may be, where they would have storage places. They would salt foods, smoke foods, store foods so that foods can last over time. And those foods were then retrieved, reheated, and eaten. But it was a whole process. You had to gather sticks, depending upon what kind of stove you're creating. If you're doing a makeshift stove, most people, especially during the time when Israelites were Bedouin or Shashu, where they was moving on the go, semi-nomadic, they had to gather sticks. They had to start a fire. Then you had to get the food, prepare the food, cook the food. It was a whole process, right? So that was prohibited on the Shabbat because it involved work, right? And most of the work that's done is anything that translates to sustenance. So if you are a merchant, if you work, and that brings in transactional funds, and those funds are for your household's needs for sustenance, then that is prohibited. That is civil work. You cannot do that type of work. And if the type of work that you do requires you to take all day to make a meal or something along those lines, that is another form of work that is prohibited on Shabbat. We see that ended at sunrise. You cannot do that no more. Exodus 16 is your guide for that, okay? So those pieces of work you're supposed to refrain from doing, and buying and selling, you should refrain from buying and selling as well, because now what you're doing is engaging in commerce that is causing somebody else to work. Okay, so all of those things should be prohibited on the Shabbat. Now, when it comes to reheating food, we have microwaves today. Now, I personally don't use microwaves, and I don't recommend microwaves, right? That doesn't mean I have never used a microwave. Of course I have. Have I used a microwave in the past couple of years? Maybe once or twice, right? And again, that wasn't because I wanted to, but maybe once or twice. I typically refrain from microwaves. I have my own personal reasons for doing that. But nonetheless, if you decide to put a meal in the microwave and press a button, take it out the fridge, put it in the microwave, and you hit one button, and it takes a minute to heat up, and you take it out and eat, that is not breaking the Shabbat, okay? If you have an electric stove, you put something on the stove for 5 minutes to heat it up, that is not breaking the Shabbat. If you have an air fryer or something like that, it takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes to heat something up to eat, yes. Now, if you got to prepare the entire meal from scratch, you got to take out your cutting board, you got to take out all your ingredients, your seasonings, and you got to do all of that, you're breaking the Shabbat. Okay, you're putting in work unnecessarily when you can either eat things that are already prepared or that take a few minutes to prepare. So reheating something by electric means is not breaking the Shabbat. Okay, now if you don't have electric means or an appliances to do stuff, and it takes effort to reheat something, I mean, you got to go out in the backyard, you live off the grid or something like that, then yes, then you must refrain from doing that. That's why it's good to make the preparations the day before or the evening before, so when the sun hits, you cease from it and you eat whatever's prepared, which is ideal. That's the ideal. So hopefully that answers your question. Now, the second question you have, I know there's a scripture on clothing in the Bible, but can women wear pants? Yes, women can wear pants that have been created genealogically for them, physically for them, right? Which means if I go in the store and it says jeans and it says women jeans, women can wear women jeans. They should not be putting on men's jeans, but they can wear women jeans. They can wear pants if it's designed for women. They can wear pants. The scripture does not say that women cannot wear pants. The Bible does not say women cannot wear pants because pants did not exist at that time. So how can the Bible tell women not to wear pants if pants didn't exist at that time? Somebody please tell me. How does that work? You know, men and women typically wore similar types of clothing back then. They had undergarments, and then they had an outer garment. And if your outer garment was removed, you was considered naked even with undergarments. So you got to read context and understand culturally what's going on. This is why I show you these books, get into this material. So the question is that women can wear pants if they were designed for women. Now, the scripture that people use, let's go to that scripture real quick. It's the one that women shall not wear that which pertaineth to a man. Man shall not wear that which pertaineth to a woman. I'm taking a moment to get into this real quick, just to suffice for the sisters. I don't know if this is new to her or anything along those lines, right? But let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 5. Okay, let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 5. Right, let's take a look at this real quick so we can see what's going on. And again, this is why you want to sign up for our future classes, because I teach you how to do this. Also on Patreon, we have Proper Biblical Exegesis, a guide for the perplexed, a series coming up showing you from top level all the way to a minute level how to perform proper biblical exegesis, or midrash, to extract the meaning out of the text using a particular methodology that will yield for you what the author intended for its immediate audience, and then what the author intended by means of Yah for us today. Okay, there's a whole technique to this thing, right? All right, so let's bring up the scripture real quick. And I tell you one time, if you don't like to repeat yourself and teach the same thing over and over again, then you can't call yourself a teacher, and you shouldn't be a teacher. Because as a teacher, I repeat myself all the time, but that comes along with territory, so it's okay. All right. So All Love says, Devon, have you read the whole Tanakh in Hebrew? No, I have not read the whole Tanakh in Hebrew. I read about 75% of the Tanakh in Hebrew, but I have not read the whole Tanakh in Hebrew. No, I have not. I'm working on that, All Love, but I have not yet. Okay. So I read about 75% of it in Hebrew. And I read the Greek New Testament, about 50% of the Greek New Testament in Greek. Excuse me. All right. Deuteronomy 22:5 says, a woman shall not wear a man's garment, nor shall a man put on a woman's cloak. For whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord your God. Okay. One of the tools that I teach y'all to use for those of you who may not be fluent in the biblical Hebrew language is called the interlinear, right? Interlinear you can access for free on Bible Hub. You scroll up to the top, you click on interlin right here. And then what you want to do is you want to cycle to verse 5. All right. At the top here is the Strong's Concordance, or the Strong's Key Concordance. Right here is the transliteration of the Hebrew. This is the Hebrew. This is the direct translation of the Hebrew. And this is the grammar broken down for that particular constituent. Okay. In this case, it says, Lo yihye kili geber al isha velo yilbash geber shimlat. Isha ki to wabach Yahweh Elohecha, right? Kal ose ele. So the key thing is this word gebir. So in Hebrew, there's a word for man, and the generic word for man in Hebrew is ish. However, that is not the word here. The word here is gebir. Gebir means a mighty man, a warrior. Okay. So what this is saying is that the negative privative here, lo, so that means here's the action, and this is the negative of the action. It's a command. You shall not wear that which pertains to a mighty man upon a woman, right? This is important. Gebir, not a regular man, right? Al isha welo, and upon a woman shall you not put on the garment of a gebir. So a man shall not wear, a woman should not wear that which pertains to a mighty man. A man shall not put on that which pertains to a woman, right? Shimlat ishaki tolabath. Yahweh Elocha. It is an abomination to Yahweh, your power, right? Your power, second masculine singular, right? So this is talking about a warrior. So a woman shall not put on that which pertains to a warrior man, and a warrior man shall not put on that which pertains to a woman. Why is the word warrior there? Because if you understand culturally what's happening in battles, typically the losing party would escape into the areas of the city, the towns, and the men would then put on a woman's garment to disguise themselves so they would not be identified as soldiers by the ensuing army. And then women would go and put on a warrior's garment, his breastplate, sword, belt, etc., to go to war. War was not for women, and cowardice is not for men. So, contextually speaking, this is what is going on. This has nothing to do with pants at all. If you go into Walmart, Target, wherever you like to shop, and they have a section that says women, and they have women jeans there, and a woman buys women jeans, it's not against Torah. She goes shopping in the men's section and starts buying men's jeans, that's another conversation. Okay. Also, a man going to buy women's clothing, that's also another conversation. But if a man's buying men's jeans, fine. Jeans did not exist at this time. Jeans didn't come about to the Persian period. Your breeches that you see mentioned in scripture, that's what we call early modern English that refers to undergarments. It's like boxer briefs, that which holds your royal jewels. Different things we're talking about. But you see the intertwining of different cultures makes it confusing. So keep this in mind. This is important, right? So now the brother asks a question, what about women wearing pants that shows her shape? Well, in Israel, we're all about modesty. So if a woman is doing that with the intention to entice other men, then you already know what that is, because she could be attracting a man who is into monogamy with his one woman to attract them to shift his eyes elsewhere. Especially if you are married, then you're going to cause him to lust in his heart, to covet his neighbor's wife. And then that would lead to not only that commandment being broken, the 10th commandment is just coveting. You're not even doing anything, but it may lead to other actions and vice versa, right? So it's the same thing with men. Men should not also wear things that are sexually appealing, because they can also entice a woman to do that which is unlawful. So use wisdom, right? Use wisdom. Chokhmah doesn't cry out for no reason. Use wisdom. I'm giving you what I give you is a template. How you build on it is totally up between you and Yah, right? But use wisdom. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So that is what that is talking about. Has nothing to do with pants. If you understand culture, you know the pants did not exist at that time period in ancient Israel. So this is not what this is talking about. Okay. So with that being said, let's go ahead and transition to the rest of the show. Hopefully that answers your question, sis. Okay. All right. So let me go into some of the things that we have as well for KHM. So first and foremost, we do have our KHM virtual homeschool service. The registration is still open. Let me go ahead and share it on the screen so you can take a look at it. So if you are a parent and you are currently homeschooling your child and you want your child to get their course information and have teachers that are part of our community, then the KHM virtual homeschool service is for you. We have our landing page, our About Us page, our frequently asked questions, the curriculum, and we tell you within the curriculum section how our curriculum is accredited. We have a contact us if you have any questions, comments, and we have a sign-up link, okay? The top right, we have the email. You can email us, and we have a contact number, okay? So, again, this is for parents who want to enroll their children in virtual homeschool services, you could be anywhere in the U.S. and we will take you. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that link here in the chat. Registration is still open. Sign up now before registration closes. Okay. So these are some of the things that we are providing to the community. All right. So our virtual homeschool session is one of them. All right. Also, we have, let me pull it up. Y'all can see. Also, we have our Chev Magazine. See if it'll let me bring it up. I don't know why it's not letting me show it, but our Chev Magazine. There we go. All right, so we just released this magazine. This is issue 1, October 2022. This is our Chev Magazine. If you're interested in getting a copy of the Chev Magazine, you can email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. We will put the links for everything in the description below, for the homeschool, for this, for everything else that I mentioned. But this took maybe about 6 months for us to put together. It's our pilot magazine. We're putting out to kind of see what the reception is. This is our Feast of Trumpets special edition. All right. So if you're interested in this, if you're signed up for the Patreon already, you get access to this at no additional cost. If you're not part of the Patreon, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com or click the link in the description when it shows up and get yourselves a copy of this magazine. What makes it so special is that it's fully interactive, meaning you can click on links, you can watch video, you can listen to audio through the magazine as you turn the pages. It's phenomenal. And we want to see our reception is high. We will work on episode 2 or magazine 2 or issue 2. And then issue 3 is going to be proposed and presented to get into physical stores. So we talking about Barnes and Nobles and Walmarts and Targets and everything like that. And that is how high we're aiming with this thing, depending on the success that we get today. So if you don't have a copy of this, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. Or if you already signed up for the Patreon, scroll down, look for the post, click the link, follow the instructions, and you can get to check it out at no additional cost. All right. Okay. So that's our Chev Magazine, and that's also our KHM Virtual Homeschooling Services. We're creating media, services, programs, products, goods, everything it takes to supply our own community so we can continue to be autonomous. Okay. All right. Also, we have our cast and lot set, which has been very popular. We sent out 8 more sets this week. All of these are done by hand, so it takes time to craft each and every one of them. So it takes time by hand. So I apologize for any delays. But we just sent out another 7. We placed another order with our supplier to handcraft another 10. We got to ship another 10 out. So if you have not received yours by Tuesday of next week, email us and let us know. But for the most part, we already have you down on the list. What we're doing for people that we're shipping late to, we're going to give you a free bonus with that. Okay, so don't worry about it. We're going to do what we can to take care of y'all, but we appreciate your patience, right? But we have our cast and lot set. Now, if you want to understand how this works, I have a video on this channel that goes over how cast and lots work. And there's also a book if you want to know the history of cast and lots and also the Urim and Thummim used by the Kohanim. This book right here, the Urim and Thummim, a means of revelation in ancient Israel, by Cornelius Van Dam, not John Claude Van Dam, but Cornelius Van Dam. And this book goes in extensively. This is one of the few works that I've ever got my hands on that actually goes into detail about cast and lots and the Urim and Thummim, right? But if you want to get a lot set, let us know. You can click the link in the description below or email us and get this lot set. It's very fascinating when you actually get to engage in the ancient pre-Israelite culture because it kind of takes you back into time and puts you closer to your maker. So if you're interested in getting one of these lot sets, email us, kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, and we'll get you set up for that. And thank you for everybody who's been patient, waiting on their lot set. We just sent the set out this week. You should have it by no later than Tuesday. And then if you want the bonus, just email us, say, hey, you know, it was delayed. I like my bonus gift, and we will give you the bonus gift. Some people are okay. They don't mind how long it takes for it to come out. And some people, I understand, it may be a bit inconvenient. So if you have experienced the inconvenience, just email us, let us know, and we'll send you a bonus gift. All right. That's what the best we can do to kind of compensate for how long it takes to get these things handmade and shipped. They come from overseas. They come from Israel. Right. So we got to get them imported to Israel, go to customs and everything like that. Right. So thank you for your patience. We appreciate it. And those of you who do have your lot set, hopefully you're enjoying it. We also have our silver scroll set as well. I also have pocket size mezuzahs, but we're not selling those yet. So if you want to get your pendant, your cast and lots pendant right here, that has what we call the Arianic prayer. This is based off an artifact that was found, the earliest biblical text that was ever found. And one has a version of a Psalms, and one has Numbers chapter 6, verses 23 to 27. And this is what this represents. So we also have this as well if you're interested. The mezuzah is right here, but we're not selling these yet. We have to get enough of these, and then we'll put these up for sale too. And then we also have the necklaces, the silver scroll necklaces. All right. So if y'all are interested in those, email us, let us know, let us hook you up. All right. Also, don't forget, we are still doing religious exemption letters for employers and universities. So if your employer university is giving you a hard time saying that you got to be inoculated or vaccinated, whatever the case may be, or you're looking for a job, or you're about to start a job and you need a religious exemption letter, the links is in the description below, or you can email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, and we will gladly hook you up. All right. Also, if you need a religious accommodation for beards, for locks, for fringes or head wraps or dresses to work or whatever the case may be, email us so we can take care of it. And if you also need a letter for the Shabbat and feast days, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com and we will get you started. Okay. Again, we do everything we can to cover the community as best as we can so we can continue to stay autonomous. And if we need anything, we should be able to get it from amongst our own without going outside our community. All right. And lastly, since it's towards the end of the season or the beginning of, well, the end of the season, we also have our 3-for-1, our KHM, the Truth Works mixtapes volume 1 to volume 3. We are offering that for $10 for all three. So if you're interested in our mixtapes, if you have not gotten them already, I don't know why you waited for so long. We've been doing this for what, about 3 years now, 3-4 years now. We've been doing the mixtapes. All right. Y'all need to sign up ASAP. Email us so we can give you all three for one good cost, and you can start enjoying music on your Shabbat. Okay. So these are just some of the things that we offer. We also have our credit repair service by means of Jubilee Manumission. If you get that Chev Magazine, we have a whole page featured in there. We also have our naturopathic health consultation program. So if you're concerned about some kind of health ailment or issue or problem, whatever, we have consultants that are waiting to hear from you. We give free consultations. We set you up with paid regimens, etc., to get you healthy again on that road to wellness. All of that, again, a full page of that is in our Chev Magazine. All right. So again, if you don't have the Chev Magazine, email us ASAP so you can get that. You'll see 2 features for those 2 services that we have, or programs and services. And then everything else that I mentioned prior to that is what we offer. We also offer a ton more stuff, but those are just the things for now to get you engrossed into the KHM culture, right? We can expose you to the culture, provide the things that we need from within, whether it's education, whether it's media, whether it's a service program, whatever the case may be. We're here to take care of the community because our ministry is 50% on screen, 50% off screen. All right. Also, if you want to schedule an appointment to chat with me one-on-one, click the link in the description below and do so. And if you're international, there is an international Zoom option as well that you can choose so we can chat. All right. All right. So we got all the formalities out the way. We addressed a couple of questions. Now let's get into this session. All right. Yes, Talmud. So you got a notification. That's the email that it came from. So you're 100% correct. So you should have your tracking. Everybody should have their tracking information. If you haven't gotten your set yet already, we send out tracking information as soon as yours is curated and ready for shipment. Okay. All right. Gabar, man, everybody, please don't ask no more questions. I'm about to go into a presentation. Okay. So no more questions for right now. Let me do the presentation. We're already 45 minutes in. I didn't even get to start the presentation yet. Okay. But I'm gonna address this real quick. You said, Shalom Divine. Are you familiar with the Young's literal translation? And do you believe it's an accurate translation? It seems to be in regards to parsing, etc. But I'd like to hear your thoughts. Yes, the Young's literal translation is very accurate in regards to parsing, or what we call slavage, because it's a formal equivalency translation, which means the translator, especially in this case, seeks to translate the text as close to the original words as possible, as opposed to a dynamic equivalency translation where the translators have attempted to translate it what we call thought for thought. All right. So if you're somebody who is very strict on parsing and translation that mirrors the original as much as possible, because you still have to add some English syntax, right? So it can make sense. YLT is pretty good for that, right? Just like the JPS can also be pretty good, and that the latest JPS version is pretty good as well. I use the ESV, which is also part of the formal equivalency translation lineage of translations, etc. But yes, YLT is pretty good if that's your thing. It's pretty good, right? Sometimes if you're not familiar with idioms, you may get stuck a little bit, or sometimes the syntax follows exactly idioms or cultural expressions or forms of poetry that you're just not familiar with that style. It may trip you up a little bit. You may have to find under the resource to try to interpret and figure out what's going on. That's why it's good to look into culture. Now, one thing that is important, I'll show you another invaluable resource. Let me see, where did I put it? Let me go grab it real quick. Okay, remember, I'm going to give you a chance last minute to win some books I'm giving away for free. Okay. This book right here is called Hebrew Poetry in the Bible, A Guide for Understanding and Translating, second edition. If you want to understand Hebrew poetry, which is extremely important, I think a lot of people don't understand Hebrew poetry, its style, its form, its intention, right? This is probably one of the best books that I've encountered that helps you to translate. That's why it's called Helps for Translators, from the United Bible Societies. I got almost all of their material because it has been a tremendous aid for me in translating the text for myself. And also, it's also going to be the central focus, these resources of this presentation I'm about to show you. But once you understand Hebrew poetry, now you can go back and look at like a YLT and start to make sense about what you're looking at, what you're reading, okay, to make sense. All right. Shout out to Kate Quick in the building, said I ordered these when you posted them. Of course, if you see something come across the screen like a matrix, if you see me put something up on the screen, I don't know what you're waiting for. Your fingers that you use for Twitter all day, Instagram all day, Facebook all day, should have been ordered on Amazon, ordering everything that we show across your screen, or just sign up for the Patreon. You get to take a look at it from my library. It's up to you, right? Some materials I'm going over today, you can get directly from the Patreon. Some of them I'm giving it away today. All right. This is another oldie but goodie. This is from the 80s. It's called Hebrew Thought Compared with Greek, Thorleif Bowman. And this is a translation of a German work. And man, this is fascinating. Oh, so many people don't understand that, but if I show you a book, you should already be on it. You should have been ordering everything that I showed you, or just wait for our giveaways. We start giving away stuff. Just give away stuff. That's what we do, right? All right, so let's go ahead and get popping. I don't know where the mods at. Mods, can y'all handle this? I don't know what this foolery is in the chat. Mods, can y'all please handle that? We about to get it popping right now. And I don't want no distraction. So mods, I need your trigger fingers ready. I need you on hair triggers, and I need you to get rid of the foolery that's in the chat. All right, y'all let me know when the mods got rid of that. All right, we're waiting on the mods now. I want to make sure the mods is active because this is the time where the freaks come out at night. All right, this is where all these trolls start rolling from out the caves and the rocks they've been under all day, waiting for this show to get started so they can distract people from getting this knowledge. All right, so we're gonna pray to the Most High that their works are gonna be futile and have no effort in whatever they seek to accomplish. But we need the mods to get on their JO. It's gone. All right, cool. All right. So every time we go live, it's Thriller Night. What does that mean? That means we got monsters and trolls and all types of stuff trying to come up in this chat, causing havoc. That's how you know the information that we put across here is dangerous. Okay. It's waking up the dead. Y'all get that in your sleep. All right, so let's get it started. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and do our presentation. Before we get started, let me preface it, right? So if you've watched this channel before, you know that I've spoken to several individuals who say that ancient Israel is in some place other than where it's at today, right? So you have some people who make the case for Tel Arad being the real Jerusalem. That's one conversation. I don't really have a big beef with that. That's another intricate conversation that requires a lot of granular discussions on little things, but that's fine because it's in the attested location. But then you have individuals that say that Israel is in Kenya, or Israel's in South Africa. Israel is in Nigeria. Israel is in Central America. Israel is in South America. Israel is in North America. I heard people say that Israel was once Atlantis and it's not here no more. That's what, I ain't lying. That's what somebody told me. Somebody also told me that Israel was in Antarctica, where it's at today. I'm not lying. I'm keeping it. Somebody told me that Israel was in Antarctica. Somebody told me that Israel was Greenland. When I say people tell me that Israel is in all these places, I just shake my head and like, whoa, how y'all getting all these different places? Ethiopia, people say Israel's in Ethiopia. They say Israel's everywhere outside of where it is geographically, historically, and culturally known to be today. So the question is, when somebody comes across and makes a statement like that or an assertion, we have to drill them down to specifics and say, okay, if Israel is there, that's fine. I just have some questions, because if you cannot address these questions, then there's no way I can trust your assertion that Israel is in the location that you say it's in. And it's something that requires a great depth of study and familiarity with various elements of that land. And when you understand that, for those who have visited, those who have researched it, those who have written dissertations on it, whatever the case may be, you are thoroughly equipped to have conversations with people about little things that they typically overlook, that the preponderance of evidence is against them, that they have to deal with. And we're going to walk through a very brief presentation, excuse me, where I'm going to show you how to dispel the notion that Israel is in some location other than where it's at today. Okay. Oh, yeah. Somebody said they heard Tennessee earlier this week. Somebody told me that the reason why they said it's in Antarctica, they said that the Most High blew wind over those areas and froze it, so that way nobody can get to Israel until the second coming, until Yah comes back to establish his kingdom. That's what they told me. I was like, oh, what? It's like, y'all just blew over it. Yeah, you know, when the spirit went over the waters, whether that word spirit means breath, the Most High, he breathed the same thing on that land of Israel, because he said it was going to be barren, it's going to be a wasteland, and that nobody can return to it. Where other place can nobody return to at Ak? I said, brother, I don't know. You tell me. Antarctica. I'm like, oh, I was like, yo. I was like, bro, I can't even argue with you, man. That brother said Antarctica. How can you argue with somebody like that? Brother, you got it, man. You took time to really think that up, I cannot even burst that bubble, bro. I'm going to let you have that. You gassed, you in a hot air balloon going somewhere, I'm going to let you rock, bro. I ain't got nothing to do with that. So I said, look, you know, I've had these conversations on this channel with random people who say it's in Kenya, it's in South Africa, it's in South America, whatever the case may be. But what I'm about to show you is something that they cannot deal with. And if y'all saw my post from last weekend, you already know where I'm getting at. And if you've been watching the channel for some time, you already know what I'm about to say. Let's put up this presentation and let's get busy. All right, so give me a second. Let me put it up. Hold on. I got to share. All right. If y'all see it on the screen, hit 1. If y'all see it on the screen, hit 1. Let me know. If you see it on the screen, hit 1. Can y'all see it? Yes? All right. All right, so this presentation is called Utilizing Geographical Atlases, Material Cultural Artifacts, and Ecofacts to Locate Ancient Israel. So we can say biofacts or ecofacts. We're going to get into that. We're going to learn what that is. And I'm going to give you 4 ways to address this argument, 4 tools that you can use, 4 approaches you can use to address this argument. Okay? All right. Let's get it popping. Before we get started, let's go ahead and read this scripture here. Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, go up into the Negeb and go up into the hill country and see what the land is and whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, whether they are few or many, and whether the land that they dwell in is good or bad, and whether the cities that they dwell in are camps or strongholds, and whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are trees in it or not. That's important. Be of good courage and bring some of the fruit of the land. So what are we talking about? So today, we're going to go into a virtual journey of ancient Israel. And we are going to survey the topography of the land. We're going to understand geographically what's what. And then we're going to bring virtually speaking, some of the fruit of the land, the things that are contained in the land, you're going to virtually bring it into your homes. And once you see the wealth of items, I'm only going to touch on a few of them, the wealth of items that exist in that ecosystem, back with you. Now you can show other people that, oh, you said you went to the land, you ain't bring no fruit back. Let me show you some stuff, and then you can bring the fruit to them. Okay? Very important to understand. It's from Numbers chapter 13. All right? You said Mars. Listen, I've heard some stuff. So, all right? So, the land of Canaan, the Negev hill country. That's important. So before we dive into some of the meat and potatoes, I got to prep you a little bit. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay. Now, this may be a little small, but it's okay. I'm going to read it for you. Matter of fact, I think I could. Can I zoom in? No, it's not going to let me zoom in. Let me see if it'll let me zoom in. Nah, it's not going to let me zoom in, but it's okay. I'm going to read it for y'all. Okay, we're going to start over here on this side. All right. So I got the website up, so let's go ahead and take a look at it. Let me bring it up. All right. So starting over here, it says, let me move this over. Here we go. All right, starting right here. At the top first, what is a Bible Atlas geography? This is a basic tool that everybody here should be equipped with, all right? A basic tool called the Bible Atlas, which orients you about the geography of the land. When you see somebody says the Negev, and when they say the hill country, if you can't point that out to me, what that is on a map, then you need an atlas, okay? Now, Patreon, we have atlases. I'm adding 2 more at the end of this live to the Patreon to go check out. But you need a good atlas because it will orient you to what we call the geographical features of the land, such as the hill countryside. If you do not know what the hill countryside is, then it's going to be very difficult for you to make this argument that we're about to present, okay? So let's go into deep dive, not deep dive. Let's just give you a simplified overview of what an atlas is. All right, we're going to start over here on this side. All right, it says, in general, an atlas is a book of charts and maps of the earth, some of which focus on only one region of the earth or one time period in history. A Bible atlas contains maps and charts related to the Old and New Testament. For example, a map in a Bible atlas may depict Israel's departure from Egypt and trace their route to Mount Sinai, then through the 40 years of wandering before eventually arriving at the Promised Land. A chart in a Bible may include timelines of the Apostles Paul's 3 missionaries' journeys as they are recorded in Acts and the letters he wrote. Where does the word atlas come from? The word atlas was coined by German geographer Gerardus Mercator, who published one of the first atlases of the earth in 1595. Mercator was fond of the character Atlas, who was a titan of Greek mythology. Mercator believed Atlas was a great geographer and named his book after him. As a result, books of maps and charts and now 3D displays, interactive websites, and phone apps are commonly referred to as atlases, Bible atlases. Excuse me, features. There are many ways that the Bible atlases visually depict the story of Scripture to help readers. It's one thing to read about God called Abram out of Ur and the Promised Land. It's another thing to geographically trace the terrain he walked with his family. Seeing a map of Abram's experience deepens the reader's understanding of what God called Abram to do and also provides more insight into what obedience entails. Here are some of the common features of Bible atlases. Geographical maps. The geography of Israel is given special attention because it is central to the narrative of both testaments. There are multiple depictions of Israel included because, while it's the same landmass, through the centuries, its national and regional borders shifted and cities were destroyed and others were established. In the book of Joshua, boundaries were based on tribes. In 1st and 2nd Samuel, boundaries were based on the extent of a king's military victories. In 2nd Kings, boundaries were based on a divided kingdom. Bible atlases contain maps of each of these time periods and several others as well. Besides Israel, the geography of nations that are important to the biblical story are also featured in Bible atlases. The land of Mesopotamia is important to Genesis, so it's illustrated. The land of Egypt, including the Nile and the Red Sea, is important to Exodus, so it is illustrated. The land of Persia is important to Esther, so it's illustrated. The Roman Empire is the geographical and political background of the entire New Testament, so it's illustrated in detail. Weather patterns. Weather plays a key role in certain biblical stories. Now, again, weather patterns is extremely important because it's mentioned in scripture. And if a person said that Israel is somewhere, like, for example, in Kenya, or let's say near the equator, some people say it was the Amazon, and you see stuff like snow mentioned in scripture, right? At the same time, you have environments where it's dry, right? Dry. You got to factor this in. Does this location you're talking about have these geographical features in scripture? Scripture says this. No? Okay. Just asking. Weather plays a key role in certain biblical stories and not just supernatural events such as the worldwide flood or Elijah's prophecy concerning rain prevention. For example, certain festival celebrations that are explained in the book of Vayikra, Leviticus, but practiced throughout the Old Testament were based on seasons and harvests, both of which are related to weather patterns. The climate of Israel affected the day-to-day life of the people who lived there. To understand their life and story, it's helpful to have familiarity with basic information. There are often charts in Bible atlases showing that Israel had a rainy season, a dry season, and some transitional months as well. Other charts show average temperatures as well as highs and lows arranged by geographical location, like mountains and valleys, and regions such as coastlines and deserts. Travel routes, roads, and waterways are commonly illustrated and described in Bible atlases. Roads could be local or international routes used for travel and trade. Certain roads carry certain products relative to the region where they were, like food, copper, iron, silver, gold, incense, and dyes. Roads of the Roman Empire are often identified because they are historically famous. Boats and other forms of water transportation were used for travel, especially during the rainy seasons. Historical descriptions often include the following features. Genesis, the section illustrates the Garden of Eden as is described in Genesis chapter 1 to 2, and the table of nations as is described in Genesis 10. Early Mesopotamia, early Egypt are also discussed because of their role they play in biblical story. Exodus, these maps depict Egypt during Israel's captivity, the Exodus route, the stay at Mount Sinai, the wilderness wanderings, and the settlement in the Promised Land. The Promised Land, cities of refuge in the Promised Land are also identified. Also included are maps related to the book of Judges and the military rulers who held power during that time. Monarchy and exile. These maps include geographical outlines of each king of Israel and Judah. The route of the exiles from Israel went into Persia is also identified. Between the Testaments, there's approximately 400 years between the Old and New Testament. The Grecian and Roman Empire are both prominent during this time, as are local regional Jewish leaders. New Testament maps include those that cover the life of Yeshua and Paul's life and ministry. The life of Yeshua includes his birth and escape to Egypt, his ministry in and around Galilee, and as well as his time in Jerusalem. Maps of Paul trace his 3 missionary journeys as well as his journey to Rome. Okay, so again, this might be a little small on the screen. What I'm going to do is share the link in the chat so you can go and read this for yourself. Okay, because I'm going to share the link where I pulled this from as a free resource for you to go back and check out. Here it is. All right, that's the link. And I want to prep you for this because a Bible atlas is going to be your best friend in dealing with these types of claims, okay? Or I won't even say they're real claims. These are just assertions, okay? So Bible atlas is good because it's going to orient you. So now this is what we're going to do, right? We're going to move on to the next slide. And the next slide says, see book. So I have 2 different atlases there on the screen. I'm going to pull them up and we're going to go through them real quick, okay? Because these things are critical. I'm going to start first with the Zondervan Atlas of the Bible, Revised Edition. Okay, this was published in 2010. It's an oldie but goodie. It's about 12 years old, but a lot of the information in it is still consistent with today, okay? Let me go ahead and pull up that resource. Okay, this is by Carl G. Rasmussen. Okay, now let's scroll through this real quick. Okay, I want to show you something. Okay, this right here is called the geographical section. Okay, there's an image right here. Introduction to the Middle East as a whole. Here's some maps for you. Okay, let's scroll in. Okay, here's a map of Israel right here. Right, the Negev means the south. It's part of the South Desert. Okay, the Negev is here, right? This is what we call the Fertile Crescent that goes from the Tigris Euphrates River all the way down to the Nile, the blue and white Nile, okay? And through what we call Israel. Some people think Israel is a whole desert, and that's definitely not true, okay? Only parts of it has that type of arid geographical feature, okay? All right, here's a Roman road in Syria, right? Now, let me scroll down. This specific part I want to show you real quick. Okay. The 5 major longitudinal zones. The land of Israel is situated at the southeastern corner of the Mediterranean at approximately the same latitude as southern Georgia, Dallas, and San Diego. The proximity of Israel to the Mediterranean Sea and the Arabian Desert has greatly influenced her topography, climate, flora, fauna, and human history. Throughout the ages, the desert and the sea have vied with one another for control of the land. The stability of Israel's permanent western boundary, the Mediterranean Sea, stands in contrast to the fluctuations of her eastern border. At times, the edge of the eastern desert served as the boundary, while during other periods, Israel's territory ended at the Jordan River. This variability is reflected in the fact that although the Jordan River formed the traditional eastern boundary of the land of Canaan, example, Numbers chapter 34, verse 12, and we have a map on page 106, the Israelite tribes settling east of the Jordan in Gilead considered themselves part of Israel in spite of the fact that the land of Gilead was outside the land of Canaan. Joshua chapter 22. The classical boundary description of the heartland of Israel was summed up in the phrase from Dan to Beersheba in Judges chapter 20 and 1 and 1 Samuel chapter 3 and 20. However, to the south, Judah was allotted territory as far as Kadesh Barnea, the desert of Zin area, and during periods of strength, she extended her rule even farther south down to Elath of the Red Sea. 1 Kings chapter 9, verse 26, 2 Kings chapter 14, verse 22, and 2 Chronicles chapter 26, verse 2. Only on rare occasions was Israel able to extend her rule as far north as Damascus, even though that region was included in the traditional descriptions of the land of Canaan. Numbers chapter 34, verses 7 to 11, Joshua chapter 13, verse 4 to 5. We can see this on the map on page 106. It seems that Israel was not able to control the Phoenician coast to the northwest, except possibly during the days of David. The geographical section will deal with the territory from Mount Hermon in the north to Elath in the south, then from the Mediterranean Sea to the Arabian Desert, since most events of biblical history took place within this area. 5 major longitudinal zones can be distinguished as one moves from west to east: the coastal plain, the central mountain country range, the Rift Valley, the Transjordan Mountains, and the Eastern Desert. A grasp of this physical stage on which the events of redemptive history occurred can bring those events to life and make it easier to understand and interpret both the records of the events and the message of the prophets and the psalmists who lived there and ministered to God's people. Okay? Now, this goes into the coastal plains. The coastal plain is the westernmost zone that stretches from Rosh Hanikra in the south to Nahal Besor, south of Gaza, a distance of approximately 120 miles. Because it is close to the Mediterranean Sea, this zone receives 16 to 25 inches of rain per year. The northern sections receive considerably more rain than the southern. Powerful springs, such as the one at Afek, provided water, but more commonly, the people of the region use wells to tap the water table, which lies just below the surface. Okay. Now, here is an image of the coastal plains, right? Philistine Plain, Sharon Plain, Plain of Akko, right? You have Sidon, Tyre, Rosh Hanikra, Mount Carmel, coast of Dor, En Tananim, Caesarea, Yarkon, or Yarkon, Joppa, or Yapa, right? This is all along the coastal plains, which is flanked by the Mediterranean Sea, okay? All of this is important, and as you dive into scripture and see scriptural references to this, and go into an atlas to see where it's physically at on a map, then you're going to be like, oh, okay, this helps you to understand the lay of the land, right? So now, here's where everything breaks down. The coastal plains, the central mountain range, you know, that hill country that's mentioned that we started off in Numbers chapter 13. Yeah, this is where the region is at right here. You have Arad to the south, Hebron, Jerusalem, Shechem towards the north, right? In the area of Manasseh and towards the south of Yehuda, right? This is all the central mountain range of the hill countryside. Then you have the Rift Valley, right? Where you have Zoar, you have the Dead Sea, the Jordan River, okay? Then you have the Transjordan Mountains, and further east of that, you have the Eastern Desert or the Arabian Desert. This is how these various zones break down in ancient Israel, and references to all of it is in scripture, okay? This is important, all right? So let me dive down. Here's a topographical map so you can start to see where some of these cities are located based on its geographical features that's mentioned in scripture and ancient Bedouin tribes, groups that keep the same routes. Semi-nomadic tribes keep the same routes, and then you go, then you ask them, where's Bethlehem? They'll tell you it's right here. Where's Ramah? It's right here. Where's Mount Ebal? It's right here. Where's Joppa? It's right there. Where the ancient Moabites at? They live right here. Those ancient groups who are undisturbed in their culture for thousands of years. It's a book that I recommend that everybody get called The Bedouin Culture in the Bible. These groups have been living there for thousands of years. Some of them has not even read the entire Bible. They just know some stories, but they can point to where these physical locations at. And things that we read in scripture that give us those features, we can line it up, map it one-to-one. Very light, but okay. It's okay. It's the Central Mountain Range. The second major longitudinal zone is the Central Mountain Range, which runs from Galilee in the north to the Negev highlands in the south. This range rises in places to more than 3,000 feet, is severed in an east-west direction by the Jezreel Valley in the north and the Negev Basin in the south. And these two places, east-west traffic can flow with relative ease. The Central Mountain Range is composed primarily of harder limestones of the Cenomanian, Turonian, Eocene types. These limestones usually erode in such a way that the deep V-shaped valleys are formed. Such a valley, usually dry during the summer months, but sometimes flowing with water during the winter, is called a wadi in Arabic and a nahal in Hebrew. The watershed or central spine of the mountains runs basically north-south. These deep wadis therefore run off and range roughly in the east and west, draining into the Rift Valley and Mediterranean Sea. The reason why this range or these hill countryside is very important, this was the target for the Israelites in their initial settlement. And if you cannot pinpoint this, or you pinpoint it in some place other than what historically at, is a lot of geographical features that you have to account for that's missing in areas outside of this area. You just got to deal with it. And then the tapering off into what we call the Jordan River and that Dead Sea area, you got to account for that. And then going further towards the opposite direction, towards the coastal plains and the Mediterranean Sea, you got to account for that. And then you have certain kings that are mentioned in scripture. When you go into their cultural artifacts, and when you go into their literature, they tell you where they're at. They still have those artifacts there today. Those buildings there today. They're still there. Unless you're telling me somebody made all that up and dumped it in that area. Now, there's people that do argue that. They do argue that. It's a far stretch, but there's people who do argue that. All right? Hold on one second. I got to plug my phone in. All right. All right. So let me scroll down some more here so you can see some images of what the Central Hill countryside looks like. And this is where a lot of the pastoralists would reside. Limestone terracing, terra rosa soil, and fencing and watchtowers typical of the Central Hill country. See these watchtowers right here? And this limestoning. See these geographical features that's mentioned in scripture? It's mentioned in scripture. You got to ask them, where's the limestoning in the Central countryside? Can you show me where that's at in the region that you're talking about? What? Oh, you don't know what the limestone area? Oh, okay. All right, cool. All right, I got you. I just asking questions, In the hills, because the upper layers of limestone have many cracks and fissures, much of the winter rainwater seeps into the ground. It continues to seep deep until it reaches an impermeable layer where it begins to flow laterally. Eventually, the water reaches the ground surfaces on the edge of a hillside or near the bottom of a valley where it flows out of a spring, or out as a spring, At times, settlements develop close to these freshwater springs, but because these small settlements were often located on the wadis, slopes, and terraces where the springs were, they were somewhat difficult to defend against attack from above. By about 1400 BC, the construction of cisterns solved the problem of being completely dependent on natural water sources such as springs and wells. You know what a cistern is? Hewn out of the limestone and lined with plaster to prevent leakage, the cisterns collected the water from the winter rains for year-round use. Soon, these bell-shaped caverns became commonplace in the hill country. Because the opening at the top was small, little sunlight entered the cavity, and the growth of algae and the standing water was thus retarded. Of course, spring water living water, and well water were preferred to stagnant cistern water. John chapter 4, verses 1 to 26. A cracked cistern from which the water had drained away into the porous limestone was useless. Jeremiah chapter 2, verses 12 to 13. You got to show me a cistern, a limestone cistern in the region where you say Israel is at. Show it to me. And then explain to me why they crack. Show it to me. They can't even show you that. Now they're showing you water level, and they're showing you the different areas of the topography, right? See this? Highs and lows. This is the Mediterranean Sea in Ashdod, Ekron, Beth Shemesh, Eshtaol, Kiryat Yearim, Yi Arim, Jerusalem, right here. Then you have Jericho, the Dead Sea. Look how low the Dead Sea is below sea level. You see that? Mount Nebo, Heshbon, and the Eastern Desert, right? Eastern Desert, Transjordan Mountains, Rift Valley, Central Mountains, the Wilderness, the Shephelah, and the coastal plains. You have to thoroughly familiarize yourself with this type of information, okay? All right. I'm going to jump down. I'm going to read a little bit of this on the Rift Valley, and we're going to go to the other longitudinal zone. The third major zone in Israel is the prominent north-south depression that stretches from Dan to Elath. This depression is part of the Rift Valley system that extends for 3,700 miles from southern Turkey into Africa. North of Israel, the system continues in a northeasterly direction into the Lebanese Bekaa. To the south, it runs through the Red Sea and down into Africa, right? Because that's considered Northeast Africa. Right, that's another conversation altogether, right? I'm going to scroll down further. Again, this will be on the Patreon for you to read, all right? Let's go into the Transjordan Mountains, okay? To the east of the Rift Valley rise the mountains of Transjordan, stretching from Mount Hermon in the north to the Gulf of Aqaba Elath in the south. While the western slopes of these mountains are often quite steep, the eastern slopes descend gradually into the Arabian Desert. The eastern boundary of this region lies approximately along the line of the Hejaz Railroad, which ran between Damascus and Syria and Mecca and South Arabia, okay? Here's an image of the Arnon George east of the Dead Sea. Here's a section of the Gezer calendar. Cross section of annual rainfall. See that? The dew of Mount Hermon. What is that? Somebody show you that region? The Eastern Desert, the fifth and final longitudinal zone in the Great Desert Expanse east of the Transjordan Mountains. In the north, the great volcanic mountains and the lava flows of the Jebel Druze make this an inhospitable region, although its high elevation ensures adequate rainfall to grow crops. But elsewhere in this zone, rainfall is negligible, and thus the barren desert stretches eastward some 400 miles to the Euphrates River. Out of this desert came many people desiring the greener farmland of the Fertile Crescent. At various points in history, these groups included the Amorites, the Arameans, the Nabateans, and ultimately the Arabs, all of who pushed into the settled regions in the continuing struggle between the desert and the zone between the desert and the Mediterranean Sea. Then we go into weather patterns. Israel's year is divided into two major seasons, the rainy season and the dry season. These seasons are separated by transitional months. And when you go into my lecture series in regards to the calendar, we use weather patterns. You can't determine what time of the year it is without examining the weather patterns. Yeshua told the Pharisees, you can discern the skies to know when it's going to rain, but yet you can't discern the times and what's about to come. Okay. All right. Let's stop here. I'm going to stop here. Let's get back. All right. So we just kicked it off by giving you a survey of a Bible atlas. which is critical to understanding the geographical topological features of ancient Israel, as mentioned in scripture. Okay? Very difficult for somebody to get around that, but they tried to anyway. So we move on to phase 2. All right? Let's move on to phase 2. We're going to move on to phase 2. Let's share the screen again. Okay? Let's get into some information. What are material cultural artifacts in archaeology, also known as realia, right? Material culture is a term used in archaeology and other anthropology-related fields to refer to the corporeal, tangible objects that are created, used, kept, and left behind by past and present cultures. Material culture refers to objects that are used, lived in, displayed, and experienced. And the terms include all the things people make, including tools, pottery, houses, furniture, buttons, roads, and even the cities themselves. An archaeologist thus can be defined as a person who studies the material culture of a past society. And then I have down as a footnote, in archaeology, broadly defined, an artifact is any ancient object created or modified by a human culture. This is important. All throughout scripture, you have realia, right? Here's an example. So he built an altar there and called upon the name of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh and pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants dug a well. I have a question. Okay, if you get this right, you will get a prize. Okay, here's the question. The first question is, somebody tell me what scripture that is. Somebody get the scripture here. Okay, I left it out intentionally. Find the scripture. Somebody put in the chat what scripture this is. I'll wait. What scripture is this? Anybody? Israel Young Lion said Genesis chapter 26. Let's confirm. Genesis 26. And let's see if this is 25. Okay, let's confirm. And it says, so he built an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants dug a well. What's your name? Israel Young Lion. Israel Young Lion got it first. Israel Young Lion, please email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com for your gift. Okay? You want a gift, email us so we can get you the gift. You beat everybody else to it. Excellent. All right. That's number one. Number two, let's see if y'all have been paying attention, because I help y'all a little bit in this. Okay? I want somebody in the chat to name 3 items of realia. Okay? 3 items of realia in this particular passage. Let me see if you can get it. I'm going to wait and see if somebody can find 3 items of realia in this passage. Email's right there, my brother. Oh. Michael Holland got it first, and Tegan was right behind him. So, Michael Holland, you also are a winner. Email's right there. Email us, Michael, so we can send you your gift. Excellent. I'm glad y'all following. This is great. It's great. All right. He says, well, tent, and altar. That's correct. I already put altar and well because I know you was going to pick that up first, but I didn't say nothing about the tent. You found it. An altar is something that is made with man's hands. A tent is also something that is made in man's hands, because these things do not naturally occur in the environment. And a well also is created with man's hands. There are some natural forming wells, but if the servants dug a well, it is a man-made item. Excellent. All right. So we have 2 winners. Email us, and we'll go from there. So let's go to the next slide. Hopefully y'all enjoy. If y'all enjoying this, hit 1. Hit 1 if you're enjoying it. If you're not enjoying what we're doing so far, the information we're putting out, hit 2. We're not done yet. We still got a little bit more to go into. But if you're enjoying it thus far, hit 1. If I see enough ones, we'll keep going. If not, we can shut it off and do Q&A. Okay? So hit 1 if you tell me if you're enjoying it so far. And I'll do a little bit more of these presentations for you guys. Let's see if we got enough ones. Do we win if we hit 1? Not this time around, but wait and see if there's another question and you have another opportunity to win, okay? And also, if you sign up for the Patreon, you're going to win. You have a chance to win 2 books. So we're doing 2 giveaways. I'm giving 2 books away to 2 different people on the Patreon. You got to sign up and you got to share the link everywhere so it can be captured by the analytics of Patreon, and then you put done in the comment. I'll share the link for that in a second, right? So now we're going to see a resource. It says see book, right? Show you a little bit on both sides. Let me show you the resource. This is the book right here. It's called The Works of Their Hands, Man-Made Things in the Bible by Ray Pritz. Okay, this is what's called the Helps for Translators, meaning that when translators are trying to translate a text into another language, they get resources like this that help them to do it. Okay, it's not enough to just get a what we will call a lexicon. You need other tools of translation to help assist with that. Okay, to make sense out of stuff, right? This one is called The Works of Their Hands, Man-Made Things in the Bible. The good thing about this is that you can look items up via the word itself. So in this case, we're going to look up those 3 items that we just mentioned, okay? So I'm going to pull it up. Okay. So there's a lot to sift through in this book. This is some of the table of contents. We're going into buildings and structures. And you see all these items? Whenever somebody says that Israel's somewhere where I know it's not, I just pull out this book and I start reading a whole bunch of stuff to them and say, where's this at? Where's that at? Where's this at? Well, what about this? Okay. All right. All right, so here we're going to look up. Let's see what we can get first. Either we're going to do tent. We can do altar soon, but let's see if we can find tent. And I wanted to do this live with y'all, so I did not write it down. But we're going to look up tent. Let's see if we can find tent in here. All right. Let's see. Here it is. Tent. 3.2. Okay, let's go to section 3. Let me go to 10. Here it is right here. See that? Tent. References. All these references to tents. You ever heard that reference to the tents of Kedar? Yeah, that's interesting. We're gonna read this in chapter 3. This is on page 148 on the usage and translation. See that? Uses and translation. Okay. Tent served as the regular dwelling of nomadic peoples. There we go. They could also be used as temporary shelter by soldiers in the field or perhaps by people moving from one permanent house to another. Translation. In a number of languages, tent is rendered house made of cloth. Translators should avoid terms that would imply a temporary shelter used only on vacations and holidays. In Old Testament times, such tents were permanent dwellings and of nomadic groups and were moved from place to place as livestock were transferred from one pasture area to another. The Hebrew's verb ahal means to pitch a tent, to move a tent, to encamp, camp, set up a camp. The word ohel serves in Hebrew to describe both dwellings used by nomads and tents used by soldiers on military campaigns, right? Such as the tent of meeting and tabernacle. Where a language distinguishes between the two, the context should be checked carefully. The following passages seem to refer to military tents. Judges chapter 7, verse 13, 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 54, 2 Kings chapter 7, verses 7 to 10. It has also been suggested that in Acts chapter 18, verse 3, Paul, Aquila, and Priscilla made tents for military use, although the Greek word traditionally translated tent maker more properly means leather worker. It should be kept in mind that in Israel's early history, many people lived in tents. The phrase went to his tent or fled to their tents often means simply went home. For example, 2 Kings chapter 14, verses 12b. It's literally every man fled to his tent. But because the context tells us that they lived in houses, RSV says every man fled to his house or his home. The Hebrew word mishkan means dwelling place, and it's often or most often for the tabernacle in the wilderness. And the passages listed above it refer specifically to a tent for people to live in, either as nomads or as soldiers. In Numbers chapter 4, verse 5, Isaiah 54 and 2, and Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 18, Mishkan appears in poetic parallelism with the word for tent. In these places, it would be best to use a general meaning dwelling place or residence. The meaning of the Hebrew word kubah in Numbers 25 and 8 is uncertain. Many translators understand it to be a tent, perhaps with a high dome, while others take it to be a partition of a room in a tent. Some translations believe it is a bedroom, but they give a footnote describing it to be a special tent dedicated to pagan religious rites, such as prostitution or divination. There seems no way to be certain which understanding is correct, so the translator will just need to choose one of them. 2 Maccabees chapter 13, verse 15. Originally, the Greek word aule referred to a courtyard and later to the court of a king. The context of this verse speaks of the part of the encampment where the king was located. So the GNT says the area near the king's tent. Most others have the king's pavilion. At best, the word pavilion will be obscure. At worst, in British English, for example, it could be misunderstood. Translators should follow GNT or say something like the camp where Antiochus' headquarters were located. The Greek word proskenion in Judith 10:22 refers to an area just inside the entrance to a tent. GNT renders it outer part of the tent. NJB has entrance to the tent, and NAB says antechamber. Okay. Now we get in a little bit more granular, a little bit more in depth, but you must purchase this book in order to get more details into that. So we got an example of tent. I also heard altar and well. Let's grab one more of those. Should we do well or altar? Let's see which one I want to do. Let's do, let me see. Let us do foundation, gate, well. Let's do well. Let's go to chapter 3 again. 3:8. Let's do well. Look at this. I like this one too. This one even mentioned the boundary marker. You see that? How these stones are set up. These ancient stones are set up for people to demarcate where boundaries are at. Fascinating. All right, so let's go to a well. Here's an image of the well, the entry for well, chapter 3, 3.8. It's on page 158. Okay, and we'll read some of it. Description and usage. The well was a deep construction, often walled with stone, at the bottom of which was a pool of water. Wells were dug as deep as was necessary to reach usable water, sometimes more than 50 meters or 165 feet deep. For the difference between a well and a cistern, see the next entry. And then go into translation. I'm going to just read these two paragraphs and move on. But on the next page, you see a cistern right here. Okay. Somebody wants me to read boundary marker. Okay, I'll read that. All right. So wells varied widely in construction depending on the topography. In some cases, a well was little more than a walled-in spring, and in fact, the Greek word pege may indicate either a well or a spring, although most often it indicates a natural source of water rather than a man-made one. In John 4, it's used interchangeably with fre'ar, a word that refers to something dug or carved from rock. The Hebrew words given above all indicate holes that have been dug. Hebrew uses separate words for natural springs, which, of course, were not made by people. You also got to find those natural springs in these regions. Because the Greek word for indicates a hole that has been dug or carved out, it is not always possible to tell whether it indicates a cistern or a well. Well, what's a cistern? I'll just read the next page real quick. The cistern was a pit hollowed out of solid rock for the purpose of storing water. Where do you find cistern? 2 Samuel chapter 23, verse 20. Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 13 are some examples. What do you find well? We just read one passage where well is found. The cistern was a pit hollowed out of solid rock for the purpose of storing water. Cisterns could be 6 meters or 20 feet across and 6 meters or 20 feet deep or even larger. In earliest times, they were hewn out of rock that did not allow water to seep through it. With the discovery how to make plaster, cisterns could be dug in many kinds of rock and then lined with plaster, which sealed any holes or cracks. Now, because y'all are asking for the boundary marker, let me read that. References: Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 14, Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 17, Job chapter 24, verse 2, Proverbs chapter 22, verse 28, Proverbs chapter 23, verse 10, which most people are familiar with, and Hosea chapter 5, verse 10. Description and usage. Boundary markers were stones placed at the edges of properties show where one man's field ended and another man's field began. They could take several forms. One form was a single large stone inscribed with some appropriate formula. Another form was simply a pile of flat stones. Okay, so I can get in deeper. We can go into these walls, these casemate walls. Where's the casemate walls in where you said that Israel is located? Oh, there's no casemate. Oh, you don't know what that is? What about the limestone rocks and stuff that we find on the hill country? No. A word? You can't find these geographical features and all these man-made realia? What? Okay. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Here's the resource. Remember, we're giving away 2 of these resources. All you gotta do is sign up for the Patreon to be eligible for it. Let's move to the next one. Let's go back to our presentation, and we're gonna end off hopefully within 20 minutes. Okay, we try to keep this as short as possible. Don't scare nobody from checking out the replay, even though this has tons of replay value. Let's keep going. All right, so let's bring up the next thing. Let's share it. All right, the next is ecofacts, fauna and flora. There are also ecofacts. Ecofacts are things that were not made by humans, but are important in understanding the archaeological record. They are organic and environmental remains, and examples include animal bones and plant remains. Ecofacts are used to find out things like what people ate and what the environment was like back then. Jeremiah chapter 8 and verse 7. Even the stork in the sky knows her appointed seasons, and the dove and the swift and the thrush observe the time of their migration. But my people do not know the requirements of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. This is an example of fauna. These are animal reigns that we find replete in the land, and these are animals that still exist in the land today. So if you're saying that Israel is in some other place other than where's that today, you got to show me these 4 birds. Now, somebody put in the chat, what are the 4 birds and you will win a prize. Somebody put in the chat the 4 birds that's referenced here. And make sure you guys are sharing this video. Please share this video. Hit the thumbs up if you're enjoying it so we can ride on top of the YouTube algorithm and go all the way to the tops and spread this information out more into the secular realm so we can wake our people up with the knowledge. All right. If you're brand new, hit subscribe. If you're already subscribed and did not hit that bell notification, hit that bell notification so you can get more notifications when we upload content or when we go live. Name the 4 birds. Should be very easy. Y'all want me to look up altar too? Let me know. Find the 4 birds in here. What are the 4 birds? And what I can also do is I can take pictures of everything we referenced in here, and I'll put it on the Patreon for y'all to take a look at. All right, from out the books. So the altar that y'all referencing, the well, and the tent, I'll put those entries on the Patreon. And then these 4 here, Nathan James, email us, kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. You also want a gift. All right. He said the stork, the swift, the thrush, and the dove. Excellent. Correct. Now, let's see if we can find some of those in an actual resource. Okay. Here's another resource right here. Let's stop, share the screen because the next page is going to say see book. There it is. And this book, I'm going to share it on the screen. It's called All Creatures, Great and Small, Living Things in the Bible by Edward R. Hope. Okay? All Creatures, Great and Small, Living Things in the Bible. Okay? Now, Ron Shevak Ben Lewy says, what's a swift or thrush? Okay? Now, let's see if we can find some of those birds in here. Okay? See if we can find some of those birds in here. Okay, we're going to go to the section on birds. And that is chapter 3. It's chapter 3. And I found dove already. There's the dove. Let's see if I can grab another one. Let's see. Quail, seagull. Somebody says they want to know what a swift is. All right. So I'll go over swift and dove. How's that? All right. So here's the entry right here. This is the one for dove. Again, they got to show you this stuff. And wherever they say Israel is at today, they got to show you this. Okay? Here's the dove right here. Okay? All right. Some biblical references. Leviticus chapter 1, verse 14. Leviticus chapter 5, verse 7. Leviticus 12, verse 6. Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 15. Chapter 2, verse 14. Chapter 4, verse 1. Chapter 5, verse 2. Nahum, chapter 2, verse 7. Hosea, chapter 7, verse 11. Ezekiel, chapter 7, verse 16. Jeremiah, chapter 48, verse 28. Matthew chapter 3, verse 16, Matthew chapter 10, verse 16, Matthew chapter 21, verse 12, Luke chapter 2, verse 24, Numbers chapter 6, verse 10, Psalm chapter 55, verse 6, etc., etc. Okay. And that is there on this word dove, those resources. Let's get into the description. Okay. Well, actually, before we do that, I want to read this right here. There are also 3 types of turtle dove found in the land of Israel, 2 of which are resident species. The third is a migrant that arrives in spring. See, that's the one that we follow to know when the springtime is there. This Song of Solomon teaches you the cooing of the doves in the land, the turtle doves in the land, the migratory birds. So the place you said Israel's at, do doves migrate there and do they coo? when the spring is there? Oh, no, they don't. Oh, shoot. Okay. What? All right, just check. All right. The third is a migrant which arrives in the spring and spends the summer in Israel. This migrant, the true turtle dove, Streptopelia tortor, and one of the species now resident, the collared dove, the Streptopelia decacoto, are what the Bible writers call tor in Hebrew and trugon in Greek. Both the Hebrew and Greek names are based on the sound the turtle doves make. Watch how fascinating. In biblical Hebrew, the word gozal generally refers to a nestling of any bird species. In Genesis chapter 15, verse 9, it obviously refers specifically to a young pigeon. Nestling rock pigeons were collected from the rock ledges. Pigeons and doves were kept in cages and dove cotes, and the wild ones were trapped in nets. This enabled the Jews to have a handy stock of birds for sacrificial purposes. The rock pigeon is a blue-gray color with a pinkish sheen to the neck feathers. It has a black tip on its tail. Its call is a repeated moaning. The Hebrew word yonah is related to the verb meaning to moan, or a rapid cooing, usually repeated 2 or 3 times. The call is uttered with the beak closed into the chest. The male sexual display starts with flying wing claps, and then when it lands next to the female, it begins bowing and turning with chest puff and tail spread. This type of pigeon lives in large colonies, and when a group is in flight, they maneuver as a single unit, often gliding short distances together with their wings held in a V shape. Doves are seed eaters, and this fact may be significant in the flood narrative. The raven, a carrion eater, does not return to the ark since food is available. The dove returns at first, and when it finally stays away, this is an indication that seeds of some sort are once again available to it, and the earth is again dry. Fascinating. Let's get into something that's a little less known, which we want to call the swift. I just had it, and I just lost it, but I'm going to grab it again for y'all. Oh, the stork is there too, right? Just want y'all to see. Again, we want to see storks. We want to see turtle doves. We want to see swift thrush. We want to see all these birds in this region. We want to see the archaeological record or strata that's been excavated in this area that you said is Israel. We want to see the remains of these birds, and we want to see these birds still there today. Okay. The stork, okay? This is Leviticus chapter 11 and 19, Deuteronomy 14, 18, and I read another verse. There's almost complete agreement that the Hasidah or the Hasidah is the stork. There are 2 species of stork that pass over Israel, where they stay for a few days as they migrate from Europe to Africa and vice versa. These are the white stork and the black stork. Both of these storks are large birds with long legs and long necks. They are heavier than most herons or cranes. The white stork has a white body, black wings, and a red beak and legs. The black stork is a glossy brownish black color with a white belly. It also has a red beak and legs. These storks migrate from Central and Eastern Europe to East and Central Africa, occasionally reaching Zimbabwe and parts of South Africa in good rainy season. They're like, you see there, the bird, I found it. The stork is there. And he's like, whoa, slow down. What about the turtle doves, the thrush, the swift? Okay, you can't just pick one and say that's it. It's a whole book of these birds. Let's keep going. Both types spend most of the time on the ground or in shallow water searching for food. The white stork eats mainly locusts, grasshoppers, and other insects, as well as frogs, lizards, and chicks of ground nesting birds. The black stork prefers fish and frogs, but also eats the same things as the white stork. When storks are about to move to another feeding ground, they usually soar around in upward currents of air called thermals, reaching great heights, and then they soar off in the direction they have chosen, conserving their energy by only occasionally beating their wings. And look here on the other side is the sparrow. Keep your eyes on the sparrow. Fascinating stuff. And here's the swifts. There's also thrushes as well. This is what the swifts look like. Very similar to a swallow, Probably heard of that bird before. Okay. You can get Psalm 84:3, Proverbs 26:2. Swallows, martins, and swifts are birds that look and behave in very similar fashion, and in many places where they are found, all are popularly known by one name only. This is true in English too, since all three types of bird are usually referred to as swallows by people who are not expert bird watchers. Scientifically, swallows and martins are related, but the swifts are birds of a completely different family. Okay. Swallows, martins, and swifts are all small birds with long, slender wings and short legs. They fly at great speed for long periods on end, twisting and turning, usually in fairly large groups. They catch insects in the air as they fly. The Hebrew word darar, my brother Darar Yahoo, you there? Is derived from a word meaning free, probably a reference to this wonderful ability to fly freely at speed, swooping, diving, and turning with no need to stop for a rest. The word sus or cease refers to the swishing around the fast-flying swifts make in the air as they pass. The common swift makes a noise described in many bird looks as a high-pitched scream, especially in the breeding season, but it also keeps up a noisy twittering almost constantly, especially near the places where it roosts. This is also a common feature of some other types of swift and many types of martin. Okay? So, I just shared with y'all from this resource some bio data on these birds and where to find them in scripture. Ani read for you 4 or 5 of them, maybe. It's about 30. So if somebody says that wherever they say is where Israel is at, they got to show you all of these birds in that region. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. All right. It might just be me. I don't know. Just dropping the science here. Next page. Let's deal with flora. Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 8. A land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees, of pomegranates, a land of olive trees and honey. So now, here's our 4th giveaway. Y'all ready? 4th free gift. I want somebody that has our KHM calendar that I referenced earlier on in this video, this live stream. Go look at the legend on the left and tell me what month does the vines for the grape season begin? What month does it traditionally begin? I'm going to give you a few minutes. Go grab that calendar and go look in the legend section on the left, because you'll see an image or an icon on the calendar with the grape or the cluster of grape. Let me know what month of the year do we have it on our calendar, and you will win a 4th prize. Okay, I'm going to give you a few minutes. 7 of y'all still there. Somebody must have the calendar. Anybody can get it. And then we're going to go into the next book. Yeah, Michael, you definitely can win again, because apparently, I guess some people are asleep or just not participating. So whoever answers the question will get the prize. So Michael, sure, you can answer again and get a 2nd prize. I'm okay with that. I'm gonna give you another few minutes. And like Scott says, don't forget to hit the like button. Nobody's teaching like this in our community. Okay? Nobody's teaching like this in our community. So, Seth said month 4. Let's take a look. I'm going to bring it up on the calendar. Sister Pam said Tammuz, month 4. I know I don't have Tammuz in our book, but I mean on our calendar, but let's take a look. Mother Beulah said month 3. Okay. So let's take a look at our calendar and see what we have on our calendar. I'm gonna go to the calendar and I'm gonna show y'all what I'm talking about. This is why you need to get the calendar. If you don't have the calendar, then I don't know what to tell you. All right. So let's see how far we go. I already see the winner. All right. Let me share the screen. All right. Here's our calendar. I went back to month 3, which represents also June 2022. And on the left on our legend, it says summer harvest grape. And it begins right here in month 3, which is the month of June. So it's on month 3 in the calendar. So the person who got that correct was Mother Beulah. She said month 3. Here is a senior, an elder in our community, a pillar who beat out everybody else. All praise to the Most High. Mother Beulah, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com for your free gift. Thank you for everybody else who gave it a shot. I appreciate it. But the elder, she has won. Okay? Remember, the question was, when did it begin? According to our KHM calendar, look on the legend on the left. You'll see the icon in the calendar itself, and it would indicate to you when it naturally begins. And we have it right here. All right. So congratulations, Mother Beulah. Thank you for your participation. At 1:47 a.m., she's awake and she's active mentally, and she got this. All praise to the Most High. I love our elders, man. All right. So let's move on with the presentation. All right. We have 4 distinct winners on this evening. And if you sign up for the Patreon, you're going to win some of these books that I'm talking about right here. Okay. All right. So the next slide says, see the book. What's the book? Here's the book. Each according to its kind. Plants and Trees in the Bible by Robert Coops. Okay. All right. And we're winding down on time. It's good because we're almost finished. All right. Look at that. Look at that luscious pistachio right there. If you ever been to a KHM event, we give you a gift, a gift of almonds and pistachios. If you don't know what that is, you gotta go back and watch one of the chapter launch events. All right, so we saw several items come up across the screen. We saw wheat, barley, vines, represents grapes, fig trees, pomegranates, olive trees, and honey. More specifically referring to honey dates, or it could be the honey that you extract from bees. But being that these are plants and or byproducts of plants that's mentioned in this context, typically it should be translated as honey dates. Okay. So what I'm going to do is look up a few of these words, not all of them. And you got to ask the person who's telling you that Israel, ancient Israel, Israel today is in some other place other than what we know it at today. They got to show you all these items there. Show me honey dates, olives, pomegranates, figs, grapes, barley, and wheat. They got to show you these things. And there's a whole book right here. This book right here is 225 pages worth of plants, plant byproducts, all types of stuff, trees. They gotta show you that. If they can't show you all these items in there, just like all these man-made items that's created, all these animals, then how do they know that that's the land of Israel? Okay, all right. So I'm gonna look up. Let me see. Let's see what we want to look up first. I'm gonna skip the wild trees and shrubs, and we're gonna go to. Let's go to food items. That's chapter 3. The food items. Okay. Here's our grains. Show you this first page here. Food items. Food plants grown and gathered. Okay. Here's the grains: barley, millet, sorghum, wheat, leafy vegetables, bitter herb, garlic, leek, onion. What we got here? Pulses, beans, chickpeas, lentils, melons, muskmelon, watermelon, condiments, caper, coriander, cumin, dill, dove's dung, mallow, mint, mustard, nigella, orache, and rue. Okay. So out of the grain, let's go to barley. Okay. One of the things we see mentioned, here's barley right here. Okay. So our barley references: Se ora, Exodus 9:31, Leviticus 27:16, Numbers 5:15, etc. Barley, Hordeum distichum or Hordeum vulgare, is a type of grass like wheat and rice. It has been cultivated in the Middle East for thousands of years and is now one of the most prominent seed crops grown in the world. 20 species are known, of which 8 are European. Barley needs less rain than wheat does, so in the Holy Land, it was typically found in the drier areas around the coastal plains and near the desert. From 2 Kings 7:1 and Revelation 6:6, we know that barley was considered inferior to wheat and was often used to feed animals, or what we call fodder, okay, as it is today. When the wheat supply ran out, people had to make their bread with barley. Barley was gathered before wheat, the harvest coming around March or April in the lower regions, and in May in the mountains, Exodus chapter 9, verse 31, 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 42. In Egypt, in ancient Greece, barley was used to make beer. Description: barley plants look like wheat or rice. They are less than 1 meter or 3 feet tall and have a single head on each stalk. Each 6 rows of kernels, although the biblical kind may have had only 2 rows. The head bends at a downward angle when it is ripe. Special significance: in the story of Gideon and Midianites in Judges 7:13, a cake of barley representing the despised Israelite army tumbles into the Midian camp and knocks down the tent, representing the nomadic Midianites. Okay. Then they go into translational aids. Okay. Next, we're going to go into wheat because we saw that mentioned as well. There's wheat over here. Okay. References to wheat: chita or chita, Genesis 30:14, Exodus 9:32, Exodus 29:2, Exodus 34:22, Deuteronomy 8:8, etc. And there's other words for it as well, but I'm going to jump down to the discussion. 2 kinds of wild wheat were grown in the open deciduous oak woodland in the northern part of the Fertile Crescent for several thousand years: acorn wheat or Triticum monococcum and emmer wheat Triticum dicocum. Both came into cultivation together with barley. Just before the time of the Romans, the naked bread wheat or hard wheat started replacing the hulled varieties. This then became the favorite type of wheat for bread and macaroni. Spelt is a submember of the species. Unfortunately, according to one dictionary, spelt is also used as a local name for emmer wheat. In the RSV and in some other versions, the generic Hebrew word bar has been rendered wheat in Jeremiah 23:28, Amos chapter 5, verse 11. This is legitimate since the grain referred to by bar was probably wheat. However, it might be better to say grain in these passages. The most important early wheat for Israelites was emmer, probably the only wheat known in Egypt, and referred to in Hebrew as chita or chita, right? However, according to Hepper, the 7-headed wheat of the Egyptian king's dream, Genesis chapter 41, verses 5-7, suggests that there may have also been Triticum turgidum, or rivet wheat, in the emmer group. The Hebrew word kusimith probably refers to a type of emmer wheat that the Egyptians called SWT. KJV renders kusimith as rye in Exodus 9:32 and Isaiah 20:24, but this is not correct since rye is a European grain that was not known in Israel in Bible times. Another way to deal with the translation: if it says rye, that is completely incorrect because it did not exist in that region at that time. It existed in Europe, okay? And that region did not discover that as far as trade until much later on, so they would not have been referring to that. Wheat is a type of grass like rice and barley, growing to around 75 meters, 2.5 feet in height, and having a head with many small grains in rows. Such significance. Bread made from wheat was the staple food for the people of ancient Israel. So God punished them by breaking the staff of the bread. For example, in Ezekiel chapter 4 and verse 16. All right. Now let's grab one of these fruits. I'm going to grab one of these fruits. Let's see. See if we can grab one of these fruits for y'all. Let's see. Do we have our fruits in here? We have a muskmelon in here. Maybe that's what I'll show you. Let's see. Let's look up a pomegranate. It's also have the index of scientific plant names if you want to get really deep with it. And it's not giving me any of our fruits that I was trying to look up. Not surprised, because it's only dealing with specific items in here. Well, so what I will do, let's go to a fruit that is very fascinatingly mentioned in here. I'm going to pick it up right here. And this is called the cantaloupe or the muskmelon. See it? Israel Young Lion Hey Divine is a KHM calendar based off the Gezer calendar. No, it's not based off the Gezer calendar. However, the Gezer calendar was considered in helping to formulate the ancient pre-Israelite, what we call sacerdotal menological model, or simply calendar, right? So we factored that in to kind of assist with that. Thank you for sharing that, Daryl Yahoo. Excellent point. All right, so the muskmelon or the cantaloupe is mentioned in Numbers chapter 11, verse 5, Isaiah chapter 1, verse 8, Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 5, and Jeremiah chapter, I don't know what that year 70 is, but Isaiah 1 and 8, Jeremiah 10 and 5, and Numbers 11 and 5, right? The RSV renders the Hebrew words as cucumber. Let's see. Cultivated muskmelon started out in and around Persia, now Iran, before moving into northern India, Kashmir, and Afghanistan. Although truly wild forms of Cucumis mellow have not been found in those regions, several related wild species have been noted. A picture of offerings presented at a funeral in Egypt around 2400 BCE contains fruit that some experts take to be muskmelons. The Greek appears to have known the fruit in the 3rd century BCE, and in the 1st century after Yeshua, it was definitely described by the Roman philosopher Pliny, who said it was something new in Campania in Italy. The muskmelon vine has round leaves and tendrils and creeps along the ground like a pumpkin or cucumber. It has tendrils and yellow flowers that develop into a fruit 10 to 40 centimeters or 4 to 16 inches in diameter. The fruit becomes yellowish or light green when ripe. The muskmelon is so named because of the distinctive smell of its ripe fruit. Musk is a Persian word for a kind of perfume. Melon is a French word from the Latin mello pepo, meaning an apple-shaped melon. Latin took words of similar meaning and significance, special significance. According to Numbers 11 and 15, the Israelites wandering remembered muskmelons and other tasty food that they enjoyed in Egypt and complained to Moses. Isaiah chapter 1 and 18 uses the melon patch after harvest as a picture of abandonment, dereliction, and desolation. And there it is. There's your melon patch right there. Muskmelon on a vine. Over here is your watermelon as well. Okay? All right. So, looking at all of these items, somebody says that Israel is somewhere other than where it's at today. They got to show you the abundance of all of these items. So if I was to add up all the pages in these books, this is 230 pages. This book here is, let's see. This book here is 485 pages. And this book here is 262 pages. So you telling me that out of almost 900 pages here, that somebody who says Israel is in some place other than where it's at, traditionally known today, are going to find all these items in that region? Are they going to do that? What? Oh, no, you can't. Oh, shoot. Very fascinating. So anyway, let's sum off. Excuse me. Let's sum off on our presentation. And what I'm going to do is just show you on this last page some references, okay? All right. Resources, the Bible. First and foremost. Then a book called The Works of Their Hands, Man-Made Things in the Bible, All Creatures Great and Small, Living Things in the Bible, Each According to Its Kind, Plants and Trees in the Bible, Zondervan Atlas of the Bible, and the Basic Bible Atlas. Okay. These are resources that you need in your library. So when this claim comes up that Israel is in ancient Israel, or Israel today is in some area in Kenya, in South Africa, in Ethiopia, in Peru, in Mexico, in Montana, somewhere in India, in Antarctica, in Mars somewhere, in Atlantis that used to be here, it's not here no more. If somebody says these things to you, bring the data up to them and say, hey, can you find me all of these items, whether in the archaeological strata or living today, or man-made items that we find in the archaeological strata or that's still being used by rudimentary living peoples of the day? Can y'all find these items for us? Because if they can't, then the evidence is against them and their argument is futile, null and void. All right. So I really wanted to do this presentation so that way I can prepare you guys and gals on how to address people that make these fallacious claims, because there's not a lot of weight to support any other region other than where ancient Israel is, and is still at today. That landmass of the Levant is still there. We went into the map of the Atlas and we saw all the longitudinal zones. And then from there, we went into the climate or the weather. And then from there, we went into man-made objects or realia. We went into animal remains or animals, which is your fauna. And we went into plants, remains, and plants there today called your flora. And all these things, these ecofacts, these artifacts, and this geographical data, when triangulated together, there's no way around the fact that without this data being used to substantiate where you say ancient Israel is at, then you are selling the people short by clinging on to some random doctrine that came out of who knows where and trying to push it off on the people without thoroughly researching the subject matter first. All right. Okay. So with that being said, we are done. Now let me show you the giveaway. All right. I am giving away these two books here. The Works of Their Hands, Man-Made Things in the Bible, and All Creatures Great and Small, Living Things in the Bible. I'm giving away each of these books. You have an opportunity to win these books. All you have to do is go to the Patreon page, share Patreon everywhere to your friends, your family. Patreon will capture you sharing the link for Patreon. It will let me know who has shared the link and who hasn't. And then you come back to the post and you comment done. So far, we only have 3 people that have done that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this link so that people can see it. I'm going to share the link in the chat. Here it is. My brother, you caused me to do the same. And so do all of y'all. every time y'all contribute to the chat, I learn something. And sometimes I don't catch everything until after the session is over because I talk, obviously. And when the session is over, I go back and look at the chat. I'm like, wow, these are some very insightful, in-depth researchers that we have in this group. So all I'm doing is contributing to the pot. And the purpose of these types of discussions is just to share information. I don't know everything, and I may not be 1,000% accurate, but the little that I do know, I share because I want to add to this KA, this knowledge article database of all the data and knowledge that we need within our community, because we should be able to source from each other before we go without or outside of ourselves. All right. So there's the link right there. I'm going to share the page. Okay, here's the page right here. This is the giveaway. Bible translation helps material. Okay, and we're giving away these 2 books. Now, also, if you are on the Patreon, right, I'm going to show you books, a book that is already there that you can read from my library. And then I'm going to add 2 more atlases. I already got atlases on there. Actually, 1 more atlas, the Zondervan, because the other one by Beck I already have on the Patreon, right? So you get to win 2 books. All you got to do is share the Patreon link. Tell people about Patreon, why our Patreon is the truth. It cannot be topped. We got the #1 Patreon in the entire Hebrew Israelite community, right? And we are gaining more momentum. And the reason why is because it's designed to give you a repository of resources, either by me exclusively or from other means. Audio Bibles, Bible study, paid Bible study software, books, references, articles, access to websites using my accounts, etc., paid websites. We give it out for Patreon. It's an immediate return on your investment once you sign up. Okay. So we're giving away these 2 books, right, on Patreon. So far, we only have 3 people who have participated and have put done. Psalm 51, Seth Moyana, and Justin Fearson. Those 3 individuals are already written down and ready to be entered into this pot to see who gets picked. The giveaway ends this Shabbat after sunset. So after sunset, whatever sunset is for Atlanta, Georgia, is when I will do the drawing. And whoever wins, I will contact them via Patreon and the messenger and let them know that they won a free book, and I will ship it out to them. All right. So you have an opportunity. If you're not on the Patreon, or if you already are on the Patreon, please just share the link. All the instructions is in the actual post, and get entered into this drawing to win these 2 fascinating resources that I went over in today's lesson. Okay. So I share the link with y'all. You'll have it. Okay. So Psalm 51 says, does Jerusalem sit on a mountain or a hill? This is why you need the Bible Atlas. So since we're talking about this, let me show you a Bible Atlas that I'm going to add to the Patreon that I already referenced on today. Okay, the one I was reading from will answer your question, Psalm 51. So you are already on the Patreon. So this will appear sometime later on today when I add this resource. All right, here it is. The Zondervan Atlas of the Bible, Revised Edition by Carl G. Rasmussen. Okay, so this will have your answer. What is it sitting on, a mountain or a hill? What is Mount Zion? Okay, what is the hill countryside? Does any of these things have to do with the city of Jerusalem? Are these geographical features mentioned in scripture? Find out in the pages of the Zondervan Atlas of the Bible, Revised Edition by Carl G. Rasmussen. And you'll get this on the Patreon from my library. Get to read it from my library. Okay. We also have the Basic Bible Atlas, a fascinating guide to the land of the Bible by John A. Beck. This is already on the Patreon, right? And then I have a throwback version of these 2 books here. These two books I have here, this All Creatures Great and Small, Living Things in the Bible, and Each According to Its Kind, Plants and Trees in the Bible. These are the 2000 plus versions. All right. This one right here, this Each According to Its Kind, is published in 2012. And this one, All Creatures Great and Small, this one was published in 2003. These are the latest versions of these resources. However, this one that I have on a Patreon is the older version. All right. This one goes back to 1980. 1980, this one goes back to. And then they have a whole bunch of other handbooks, a translating handbook for the book of Joshua, Ruth, Amos, Jonah. I'm going to give some of those away as well. They have guides, a translated guide, etc. Excellent resources. But this one is available right now on the Patreon. All you got to do is look up the word fauna or the word flora, do a search on the Patreon, and you'll be able to find this resource and read it for yourself. Okay? So we have one of the best YouTube channels, Patreon pages, resources in the Israelite community. KHM is invaluable, both for scholarship and for the work we do in the community, the services, the programs, the products, the goods that we offer. We're all about culture, community, and autonomy. That's what we're about, 100%. And I pray that today's lesson empowered you to go back out and have this conversation with more confidence. Okay, with these resources and these questions that must be asked about the material culture, the artifacts, the geography, and the ecofacts that all substantiate that the land of Israel, where it is traditionally known and where it's at today, is where ancient Israel is at. And I only skimmed the surface and gave you a cursory reading and understanding of this particular subject matter because it gets deep. I got tons of scholarly works, materials in other books and articles that I even went to a consortium lecture on this back in 2015, where they did something on material culture and everything like that. It's very fascinating. And I was there with the scholars who write on this, and I've asked them questions. I thoroughly familiarized myself with the subject matter because I realized that people who make these outlandish claims have not dug this deep, and they fall short in trying to answer these questions that are positive to them in regards to this. So you must be rooted in culture, history, language, geography, etc., to be fully grounded in the scriptures, to understand the author's intention for its immediate audience. And then once you're able to look at that domain with the variables of information, then you can map it one-to-one to today's domain and today's variables, and being able to see, oh, okay, this is what it was within the context at that time period, and this is how we map it to today, so that you can grab a hold of that mapping and apply it in the same fashion they did back then, in the same form they did back then, and yield the same results. That's the goal. That is why we're all about pre-exilic culture, because we teach you how to revive this culture, the intended culture for the Israelites before they went into exile. We are reviving and restoring that so we can give it back into the hands of our community, make them a more close-knit community, and spring from out of that Goshens of autonomy so we can await Yah's arrival to redeem us out of these lands and bring us back into his land. All praise to the Most High Yah. All right. Get Wise says, when will you do the presentation on prayer? Very soon. That's on my list of top 5 next lectures to knock down. So I got y'all on that, and I appreciated that. Okay. All right. So I appreciate y'all time. Thank you for watching. I was trying to finish at about 2 hours, but we're at 2 hours and 28 minutes. Still good timing. I'm not going to take any questions, as we'll be here for another hour, 2, 3, 4 hours. So wait for our next Freestyle Friday or our next live session during the week, and then or our light work session during the week where you could ask those questions. We can dive into it. But I'm going to end the session off here. Thank everybody for your support. All the contact information is in the description and scrolling across the screen if you want to help out the ministry. The best way to repay the ministry for anything that we share with you on today is to subscribe for our Patreon, which is www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. And remember, we have those 2 giveaways ongoing until sunset later on today after the Shabbat. All right. I love you, family. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. Hope you enjoy your Shabbat. I want you to relax, refresh, and renew. All right. All praise to the Most High until we meet again. Thank you, family, for your support. Peace and shalom.